Om Shri Sakala bhuvanarang वरामि श्रीमत् परब्रह्म गुरुं वरामि श्रीमत् परब्रह्म गुरुं नमामि श्रीमत् परब्रह्म गुरुं भजामि ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं वन्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यारिलक्षम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदि साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि नित्यं शुद्धं निराभासं निराकारं निरञ्जनं नित्यगौरं चिरानन्दं गुरुब्रह्माणमम्यम् भुजे कर्णिकामध्य संस्थे सिंहासने संस्थित्य दिव्यमूर्तिं ध्यायेत् गुरुं चन्द्रकलाप्रकाशं श्रीपुस्तकभीष्टवरं धराणां श्वेताम्बरं श्वेतविलेपपुष्पं मुक्ताविभूषं मुरिचं त्रिनेत्रं वामकविद्यासिद्ध्यशक्तिं मन्दस्मितं साङ्गपाणिराणाम् आनन्दमानन्दकरं प्रसन्नं ज्ञानस्वरूपं निजभोरयुक्तं योगीन्द्रं योगवेद्यं श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि तस्मिन् श्रुति श्रुतिर्वंशं मेघानुग्रामकं नित्यं पञ्चवीरं शाश्वतं वासते तं नमाम्यहम् रक्तशिरशिशुगाब्जे वीरत्वं द्विभुजं गुरुं परभययुतं शान्तं स्मरेतं नाम पूर्वकम् न गुरोरधिकं न गुरोरधिकं न गुरोरधिकं न गुरोरधिकं शिवशासनता 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 त्रिरमेव शिवं त्रिरमेव शिवं त्रिरमेव शिवं त्रिरमेव शिवं मम शासनतो मम शासनतो मम शासनतो मम शासनता एवं विधं गुरुं यात्वा ज्ञानमुपाद्यते स्वयं तत्सद्गुरुप्रसादेन मुक्तोऽहमिति भावये गुरुदर्शितमार्गेण मनःशुद्धिं तु कारये अनित्यं खण्डये सर्वं यत्किञ्चिन्तामगोचरम् तेयं सर्वस्वरूपं च ज्ञानं च मानुष्यते ज्ञानमेव समं कुर्यात् अन्यपन्था द्वितीयकम् एवं श्रुत्वा महादेवे गुरुनेतं करोति यः ध्यायति नरकं घोरं यावच्चन्द्रदिवाकरम् यावकल्पं चतुर्देहाः तावदेव गुरुं स्मरेत् गुरुलोको न कर्तव्यः स्वच्छन्दोऽयमिवाभवेत् उत्तरेण न वक्तव्यं तन्निशिशेकतञ्चनः गुरुरात्रेण वक्तव्यम् असत्यं च कराचनः गुरुं संकृत्य गुरुं निर्जित्य वाजसा अरण्ये देशे सावरे ब्रह्मराक्षसा मुनिपिपानगिर्वापि सूर्यवशापितो यदि कालमृत्युभयाद्वापि गुरुरक्षति पार्वतीम् अशक्ता हि सुरभ्यश्च आशक्ता मुनयश्च गुरुशापेन ते शीघ्रं जायम्यन्ति न संशयः मन्त्र ब्रह्मणि चिराकारम् आनन्दं समित्युताम् अङ्गुष्ठमन्त्रपुरुषं दायकश्चिन्मयं मणिं तत्र स्फुरति भावोऽयं श्रुतं कथयं याम् अगोचरं तथागम्यं नामरूपविवर्जितं निःशब्दं च विजानीयात् स्वभवं ब्रह्म पार्वती गन्धस्वभावेन कर्पूरकुसुमादिषु शीतोष्णस्वभावेन तथा ब्रह्म च शाश्वतम् स्वयं तथाविदो भूत्वा स्थातव्यं यत्र कुत्रचित् चित्तब्रह्मरभतात्र ज्ञानं भवति तादृशम् गुरुज्ञानं तथा कृत्वा स्वयं ब्रह्ममयो भवेत् पिण्डे परे तथा रूपे मुक्तो तो नात्र संशयः श्रीपार्वती उवाच वृन्दं किन्तु महादेव परं किं सामुदारताम् कृपयन्तं जगत्पते वेदतर्याय शङ्करा श्रीमहादेव उवाच वृन्दं कुण्डलिनी शक्ति परमं सामुदारताम् कृपयन्तं निरञ्जनाम् ते मुक्ता परे मुक्ता रूपे मुक्ता वरानने रूपचित्ते ये मुक्ता से मुक्ता नात्र संशयः स्वयं सर्वमयो भूत्वा परं तपं विलोकयेत् परतरं नम्यात् सर्वमेतत् निरालयम् तस्य वालोकनं प्राप्य सर्वसम्भाविवर्जितम् एकाकिनी स्पृशन्तं विश्वसेता प्रसादताम् लब्धं वा धनलब्धं वा स्वल्पं वा बहुलं च निष्कामेनैव भोक्तव्यं सदा सन्तुष्टते च सा सर्वज्ञ परमित्याहुर् देहि सर्वं मयो पुरा सदानन्द सदाशान्त रामते यत्र कुत्रचित् यत्रेमति सदसोऽपि सदृश पुण्यभाजनां मुक्तस्य लक्षणं देवी तवाग्र Dushasaneyana Siddhi Sarvasirushtukambale Shiva Durvaya Devi Asane Shubrakambale Pavisha Devi Kamede Rakamanasa Priyam Satsang Sashanyartan Vashira Kasanam Priye Abhichare Krishna Varnam Vitarvanam Dhanagame Uttare Shantikamastu Vashe Purvamukojale Dakshine Maranam Proktam Kashime Chatanagama Rohanam Sarvabhutanam Vandamoksha Bhave Devaraja Priyakaram Sarvadokavashambhave Sarvesham Samanakaram Puraram Chavivardhanam Dushkarmanashanam Cheva Sukarma Siridambhave Asidam Sadaye Karyam Navagrahapayapaham Dusvapnanashanam Cheva Susvapnafaladayakam Sarva Shanti Karam Nityam Tatavadyasa Pursaram Avedavyam Karam Srinam Saubhagyadayakam Saram Ayurarogamishvaryam Putraputrabhavardanam Akamata Shrivirava Akamoksha Bhavapniyam Avedavyam Sakamatum Lavate Chanya Janmani Vayam Vignam Nashaye Chapaharakam Sarvabhada Prashamanam Dharmata Kama Mokshanam Yam Yam Chintayate Kamam Tam Tam Prapnoti Nishitam Kamitasya Kamadenu Kalpana Kalpaparapa Chintamani Shrinditasya Sarvamangalakarana Sadasa Brahma Viksama Tasya Sthanani Sarvani Pavitranena Samshaya Sarva Shuddha Pavitrosa Swabhavadyatra Tishtati Tatra Deva Gana Sarve Kshetre Vite Vasanti Asanasta Shayanova Kassati Samvananapi Ashvaruto Hajaruda Sunto Vajakrito Piva Shisma Sasararyani दुर्लभम् शरीरमिन्द्रियं प्राणं सर्वस्वजनबन्धवा माता-पिता कुलं देवी संशया अकल्पजमनकोट्या तपाव्रता तपाक्रिया तत्सर्वं सकलं देवी गुरुसन्तोषमाकृता दिव्यतपोबलेनेव नन्दभाग्याश्रये नरः गुरुसेवां न कुर्वन्ति सत्यं सत्यं वरानने ब्रह्म विष्णु महेशाश्च देवर्षि पितृपिन्नरा सुधाचारण यक्षाश्च अनेके मुनयो जनाः गुरुभावा परं तीर्थम् अन्यतीर्थं निरर्चकम् सर्वतीर्थाश्रयो देवी पारपुरुषं च वर्तते जपेन जयमाप्नोति जानता फलमाप्नुयात् येन कर्म त्यजन् सर्वं स्नानानि च रमाणि च जपामेन सनं कुर्वन् येन कर्म फलप्रदम् गुरुगीतं प्रयाणेव सङ्गमेनुपसङ्गते जपञ्जयमवाप्नोति नरमे मुक्तिरायकम् सर्वकर्म च सर्वत्र गुरुपुत्रस्य सिद्ध्यति प्राचीनो वाचन् तावग्रे कथितन्मया सुगोप्यं च प्रयत्नेन ममां च प्रियात्विति स्वामी मुख्य गणेशारि विष्णवरिणं च पार्वती मनसाप्येन वक्तव्यं सत्यं सत्यं वदाम्यहम् अतीवकल्पचिताय श्रद्धभक्तियुताय च प्रवक्तव्यमिदं देवी ममाश्री सदा प्रिये अभक्ते वञ्चके दुर्गे आपने नास्तिके नरे मनसाप्येन वक्तव्यं गुरुगीता करार्चनम् संसारसागरसमुद्रनेकमात्रं ब्रह्मादिदेवमुनिपूजितस्य च मन्त्रं दारिद्र्ययुक्तं भवरोगविनाशमन्त्रं वन्दे माभयरं गुरुराजमन्त्रम् इति श्रीस्कन्दपुराणे उत्तरखण्डे ईश्वरपार्वतीसंवादे गुरुगीता समाप्ता श्रीगुरुदेवचरणार्पणमस्तु नित्यानन्दाय गुरवे शिष्यसंसारहारिणे भक्तकाये कदेहाय नमस्ते चित्सदात्मने निवासनं निराकाङ्क्षं सावदोषविवर्जितं निरालम्बं निरन्तं तं नित्यानन्दं नमाम्यहम् निर्ममं निराकारं समलोष्टास्मकञ्चनं समादुःखसुखमनीरम् अवधूतं नमाम्यहम् अविनाशिनममानम् एकमेकाय तत्त्वताम् वितरागभयक्रोधं नित्यानन्दं नमाम्यहम् अहं देहो न मे देहो जीवो नमामि एवं विज्ञाय सन्तुष्टं समस्तं कल्पनामन्त्रं यममुक्ता सनातनम् इति विज्ञाय सन्तृप्तं नित्यानन्दं नमाम्यहम् ज्ञाननिदानकर्मणां कामसङ्कल्पवर्जितं श्रेयोपाय Gopala Krishna Krishna Govinda Govinda Gopala Krishna Govinda Sadhgurnath Maharaj Ki Jai. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday morning live stream, Sunday morning Satsang on YouTube again. So hopefully you have all found us again, and that is where we will be, Shanti Mandir Walden, going forward. So hopefully we've all had a chance for the last hour and a half to be able to absorb ourselves in the chanting, the Guru Gita, our morning kirtan, and allow ourselves to be immersed in chanting the name of the Guru, chanting the name of God, chanting the name of all of the wonderful great teachers and all of the great names that are from our tradition. And what this does is it allows ourselves the time to break free of and become free of all that we are taking in every single day, especially these days with all of the videos, with all of the things that are going on with the virus itself, our whole nation, the entire world, and what it is, what's transpiring at this time. And it gives us a chance to go to something a lot deeper and something that is certain, something that is eternal, something that is there always, that we can go to continuously drink the nectar of divine love, drink the divine intoxication that all of the teachings and the knowledge point us to. So wherever you are in your living rooms, hopefully you have the opportunity to join us for all of the live streams, chanting, and somehow I can imagine everybody either with their hands clapping or with their smiles or with their swaying. Maybe some of you are even dancing in your living rooms. Gurudev said they're having another dancing sapta at Magod tonight. So when I was thinking of that, I was thinking of us doing Krishna Govinda Govinda here, and I was just thinking, Krishna Govinda Govinda, and everybody just kind of moving to that note, to that tune, to that great beloved chanting that reaches us so deeply. And as we do it more and more and more and more and more, it becomes the foundation. It becomes a place inside that is so accessible, so easy to tap into, and all we have to do is simply chant the name of God, surrender to that beautiful inner Shakti, and allow ourselves to feel it, experience it, know it, and make it our own residence. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce Dana this morning. So he's going to be our speaker for this morning. And he's going to continue with Baba's book, Where Are You Going? So as I always say, there's always incredible gems, incredible wisdom inherent in every single book, every single talk, every single aspect of Baba's being is there. And it's always wonderful when we have someone who can share with us that direct experience. And Dana is one of those great people. So with that, I invite Dana to share. So everybody, wherever you are in your living rooms, make sure that you allow yourselves to get seated and then settle in for probably the next 45 minutes. And then we'll conclude with our very own Danya Danya and Joda Se Joda. Dana. Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai.
Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityanandaya Gurave Shisha Samsara Harine Bhaktakarye Kadeyaya Namaste Chitsadatmane Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachidananda Murtaye Nishpapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase Om Sana Vavatu Sana Bhunaktu Savilyam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Om Shanti 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 Sadhgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunday morning satsang. So it's quite a time we find ourselves alive in, and it just seems to keep getting crazier. And now the violence in Minneapolis and the unfortunate circumstances there added to that. And then the expression around the world in all different ways of the outrage and the understanding of the injustice and the compassion that people are expressing, and also the anger. So there's so much going on, and it really gives us pause to think about the nature of the world and the nature of this life, the nature of our lifetime, and where it's all going to end and where it's going, and where we're going. And it really is kind of like gives you don't know what to think, you don't know what to feel. There's a certain hope, there's quite a bit of fear, anxiety. I understand there's a lot of people consulting psychologists, and relationships may be really in jeopardy when people are together and they just want to get out. So some of what's going on may be an expression of the frustration that everyone feels and the general concern about their future. So there's a lot of anxiety that comes. And so it brings up the whole notion of what life is and what the nature of the mind is. And so Baba would bring us right back to that. So for a sage, from our point of view, we look and we say, well, how's the world going to do, and what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my family? And from the sage's point of view, he said, this is all consciousness, and the reason for all this is people are unaware of the true nature of the world and of themselves. They're not aware that they are pure consciousness, that everything arises from that consciousness. This is all an expression of that. And in that space, everything is good, everything is peaceful, and then that person who has that state of mind is able to really do something powerful, because their perspective is so different. They have, I mean, wouldn't it be great if we had leaders that had that state of mind, that had that presence of mind and that compassion and that broad awareness that everyone is their own family, that everyone is an expression of divinity. Those are rare. Those are rare. So we're reading from Baba's book a little bit, and I went right back to the first page of the book where he says, where are you going? Baba says, oh friend, where are you going? Where have you come from? And what are you supposed to do? So this is the Atma Vichara, the contemplation that an individual, when they land themselves here, they find themselves here, you know, they come out of the mother. Where are we going? Where did we come from? We don't know that. Where are you going? Who knows? We don't really know that either, generally. I mean, we like to say, I like to think I'm on a spiritual pilgrimage, and that my true destination is self-knowledge. The body's destination is known. It's death. It's another incarnation, according to the Bhagavad Gita. So there's this sense of transmigration and passage from one life to the next. And in this lifetime, Baba is saying, contemplate who you are, where you're going, what you're supposed to do. He says, you belong to the supreme truth, but you have forgotten your origin. So the origin of everything is consciousness, is divine. And all different traditions teach us that. He says, now it's time to get back on the main road. So that's what we do in satsang, that's what we do in our spiritual practice. Try to get back on the main road, and when we meet a great being, he gives us a spark, lights the candle within us, and the Kundalini is awakened, and we're on the main road. So there's an unfoldment, there's a whole process, and a whole process of this contemplation, and looking at ourselves, looking at the baggage that we brought with us into this lifetime, the karma, the imperfections, the impurities that compelled us to be born again. And then there's the experience of divinity that's juxtaposed with that we have. And in the process of experiencing our divinity and holding to that and worshiping that within ourselves, we see the impurities. And it's easy for us to look at the situation there in Minneapolis when that young man was, unfortunately, his life was taken from him. That how could that happen? That's outrageous. Shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. But if we examine our own selves, that we also have all those lust, anger, greed, jealousy, attachment, and anger, frustration. You know, that police officer was overcome. As Baba Gurudev said last week in the video, there's anger, there's frustration, there's loss of reason, and then everything is gone. And in a split second, something happened in which that person lost his life. The policeman basically loses his life. All the people around him and his family, it's this one instant of this anger, like destroying something. And then the entire world, who could have thought in that one moment, the effect of that is spreads through the world. It gives us pause to think, reflect on yourself, and make yourself pure, and know that everything is consciousness. Make sure you understand it, and that it becomes firm knowledge within you. This book was written, I think, in 1979, somewhere around that time, excuse me. The next paragraph, Baba says, after he says, let's get back on the main road, he says, today the world is said to be making more and more progress. But in what way has it become greater? Murder, thievery, fighting, destruction are on the rise everywhere. All over the world there is hatred among nations, hostility among political parties, animosity among society, and enmity among races and classes. People talk about innovation and reform, but in the name of these things, they have succeeded only in destroying the environment. In wrecking family life and increasing selfishness and hostility. Sounds pretty like he's talking like today. So these are not new things. These are things that Baba observed himself back in that time. He said, in such a world, there's only one thing we need, and that is a true understanding of humanity. Yet that is exactly what we lack. Why does a human being behave as he does? Why does he create barriers between himself and others? Why did he live with enmity and competition instead of feeling brotherhood? He does these things because he lacks true understanding about himself. So what Baba is presenting here in this first little section of the book is a very sort of interesting package. First, he's saying one should inquire. One should contemplate yourself. You should contemplate world events and see how you interface with that, what it means, and then understand that there is a problem. So he's pointed out the problem. The nature of the world is in strife, is in turmoil. And in fact, there's always a great degree of that in this world. And he says the cause of that is a lack of human understanding, the lack of understanding the knowledge of the self. So he says, go within. He said, this universe is made of consciousness. He said, in the same way that which is born of God, we can never be other than God. Within the heart dwells a shimmering effulgence whose brilliance surpasses even that of the sun. The inner consciousness is the same as that which creates and animates the entire universe. But we are not aware of this. Even though we come from this consciousness, we have changed our understanding about ourselves. So the point is that we take this initiation, this opening, this awakening, and we work with it and we meditate, we go within and we stay there. And we keep referencing everything back to that space. So he brings up the idea of contemplation, a problem, the cause of the problem, and the remedy to the problem. And then finally, the outcome to that the outcome of the remedy is living in that space of consciousness, in that space of love and compassion. So we live with these friends of ours, lust, anger, greed, jealousy, attachment. And if we observe ourselves during the day, we can see them. And some people say, well, no, I don't have that. I've been doing yoga for a long time. But if we're very careful, and we look carefully and we look deeply, we see at in a moment where we're not aware, they may arise and shock us, and we may say something inappropriate, hurtful to someone else. And there it is. Then we have to backtrack. We have to apologize. There has to be some reconciliation. The mind has to heal itself a little bit, and then we're back on the main road, as Baba said. So there has to be this sense of vigilance and awareness all the time. And when the mind starts to become more pure, these occurrences happen less often. But there's always vigilance is recommended, that we continue to dive in and dive in. Tukaram says, Brahmarasa ge khada tene pide rarela patyanamu vittavache anika vache na sevi bhavaroga esa jaya anika kai shulake tuka mani nave bhada anika kada bhutanshi. Tukaram says, Brahmarasa ge khada. Go within and drink the nectar of the self. Now, if this is something new for you, drinking the nectar of the self can mean praying. It can mean just becoming quiet. It can mean, for those of us who have been on the path for a while, it means there's a real ability that we've developed to sit quietly and settle in, as Devyani mentioned, settle into that space and drink that nectar. So the intention here is, Tukaram is saying, find a way. Find a way to drink that nectar, because that's the antidote to the situations that we're having here where you can purify the mind and know yourself. So he says, Brahmarasa ge kara tene pide rarela. Don't take anything else. Just take that. Let your mind be consumed by that awareness. He says, Bhavaroga aisa jaya. See, the disease of worldliness will be overcome by this Brahma rasa that you take in. So we have from us, and it's because of the activity of the mind. And the first quality, it's called kleshas, and these are like conditions that come with us when we come into this lifetime. We come through the mother's womb, we have the parents, we have the siblings, and there we are. And as we're born into this lifetime, first we have avidya, which is ignorance of our true nature, as Baba says here. The problem is we don't know our true nature. And then the second is asmita. So first one's ignorance. The second one is called asmita. And that comes about, it's a condition which we identify with the body and the mind. So because we don't know our true nature, the mind has to identify, the individual identifies with the equipment that we come with, which is the mind, the senses, the ego, and the body. So we say, I am this individual. And so at that point, we're kind of stuck. We have a problem. Our true nature is hidden from us because of avidya, which is ignorance, and asmita is wrong identification. I don't know myself, and so I think myself is something that it's not. It's really just the vehicles. There's a story Baba used to tell from Sheikh Nasruddin. Once Sheikh Nasruddin was giving a little party, and he had some cake, and he was passing out, they call prasad, like gifts, because he was celebrating something, and they asked Nasruddin, what are you celebrating? And he said, I lost my horse. Oh, that's very sad, Sheikh Nasruddin. Why would you be celebrating that you lost your horse? He said, well, I was riding the horse at the time. I lost the horse, but I didn't lose the rider. So we lose the rider, and we take care of the horse. The rider is the self, the pure witness, the power behind the mind that enables the mind to think, the power behind the senses that enable the senses to see, the life in the body, that soul that comes in through the mother's womb is contained in this body, but it's the pure self that arrives, and it has this ignorance of asmita, avidya and asmita. So it's there, it arrives here, and with it comes karma, comes tendencies, what are called samskaras, or impressions from all the past lifetimes. So it's your baggage that you come with, and it is that which arises when someone says something to you, and boom, there's anger, or you see something, and there's lust, or there's greed, or there's attachment. And from these things, we get more and more limited, less and less in touch with our true nature, and the mind begins to think crazy thoughts, and there's all this jealousy, anger, attachment is what we see in the world now. The nations fighting, animosity between races, all the things that Baba mentioned here. So the avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, those are the next two. So there's two and then two, raga, dvesha. Raga simply means desire. Kshemaraja in the Kashmir Shaivism we're studying now says the mind is conditioned, mind is colored. Our mind is colored by the desire for objects. If we think about it, that's really true. It's like a coloring of the mind. The mind is colored. It's tainted by that. There's a sage that wrote a poem that said, let my mind be colored with the color of God. Because now my mind is colored with the desire for sense objects. So that's raga, the desire. And then the other one is dvesha, which means raga is I want pleasure, dvesha is I don't want pain. Okay, so that's the condition. Ignorance of self, identification with something that's not yourself, the vehicles, and then there's attachment, aversion, desire for pleasure, aversion to pain. And then the final one is abhinivesha, which is clinging to life. So we have this package, right? The individual, and he clings to life. And that's the whole idea of this world. So we look at the situation going on right now, and it's hard for us to to not feel upset, and we feel compassion. We feel we feel love for the people that are expressing their views, and it's a little bit like the situation that is described in one of Kabir's own poems. Kabir is one of our friends that Devyani was mentioning. And once the story from the poem he wrote, the Doha, the two-line poem, he says, Chalati chakka, chalati chakhi deki dekake, diya kabira roya, dui patana ke bicha me, sabuta bacha nakoi. The young Kabir walking through the market sees the miller grinding grains of wheat. So here's Kabir, a young man. He's walking through the marketplace. And Kabir is a yogi. And even at that age, he has an understanding. He sees this drama, that the description of which I just pointed out, the plight of individuals. And he's seeing everyone is in pain. Everyone's in anxiety. Everyone's in states of fear. Everyone is ignorant of the self. And he's watching in the market, he sees the miller grinding grains of wheat. And if you're not familiar with the Indian grinders, it's quite an interesting tool. I saw several pictures online, and I wish I could have brought you a picture. But you can imagine two stones that are like flat stones, right? One sits on top of the other, and there's a hole in the top one, and then the two stones sit in a bowl, and then the top stone has a handle. You getting this? So then you first you put the grains in the middle, right? Or you can take the stone off.
There's a hole in the first layer of stone.
Okay, so you just, in order to grind the wheat, you put the grains in the hole in the middle. So then it's as it grinds, the stone turns around, and all the grains are sort of spread out under the two stones, and they grind, and they grind, and they grind. And then once they're ground, they start to come out the side, and they're caught in the bowl. So when we saw the Tukaram movie, we saw his Tukaram's wife grinding this grain, and Tukaram kept giving all the grain away. So you're grinding this wheat. This turns and turns, and put more wheat in, and it grinds and grinds. So Kabir cries when he sees that not even one grain is saved from the grinding wheel. So it's going all the grind. So we're like these grains of wheat between these stones in this world being ground. Nice picture, right? Being ground by these ground. So Kabir is he's really emotional about this, but it just so happens there's a great being named Kanak Das sitting nearby watching this and hearing Kabir's crying. And he shows him, he takes one wheel off the other, and he shows him that the grains that have stayed next to the middle in the center are not ground. So Kabir said, this is the secret. This is the secret of life. In the midst of this world, stay in the center. Stay in that pure center of consciousness. With your prayers, with your meditation, stay there. Be in that space, and you'll be free. You won't be ground by that. And in that space, you have awareness that overcomes avidya, because in that space, knowledge arises. This sound of soham and the experience of divine love arises, and you have the recognition, I am that. I am that pure self. And so that light shines within us. It overcomes the darkness of avidya, right? Of the no knowledge of self. And then the wrong identification, I am this body, I am this mind, is overcome. Because there's a true identification. So Baba said the real problem is that we don't know ourselves. So we need to come to know the self by going within, so that asmita is overcome. And then this raga and dvesha, attachment, and aversion. We need to be aware of that. So the sadhana is centered around this idea. So we can think, what are these two stones? The pair of opposites, the pairs of opposites, right? Birth and death, happiness, sadness, attachment and aversion, success and failure. So between all these, there's always anxiety and there's fear. So if we get grounded by these two stones, if we're identified with the body, then there's suffering. So Buddha said the cause of suffering is clinging. So if we cling to this sense of I am the body, I am the mind, then this avidya becomes even stronger. If we point our attention at the true self, unite with that, absorb ourselves in that, then those kleshas, those pain-creating phenomenon, conditions that we find ourselves in here in the body, they begin to loosen and things begin to change. So these conditions that we recognize, anger, greed, attachment, jealousy, they're not part of our true nature. They're part of this complex of incarnation, of involvement. There's a story from Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, which is a book of a lot of really beautiful Zen stories, the Zen masters and quotations and aphorisms. Once there's a Zen monk that went to see his master. He said, "Master, I'm having a huge problem with my anger. I just get angry and I get so upset and I lose my meditation and I can't sit and my mind is racing and I get angry with people and then they get upset and everything goes, just crazy and I'm losing. I'm just so upset because of this anger I have." And so the Zen master says, "Oh, that's very interesting. You have this anger. Can you show it to me? If you have it, you should be able to show it to me." And he says, "Oh, I can't show it to you. I'm not angry right now. I can't show it to you." So the master simply says to him, "If you can't show it to me, if it's not present at all times, it must not be your true nature. Drop it." So it's not our true nature, and that is the way to overcome, dissolve it, drop it. The Yoga Sutra will finalize this bit here about how to overcome these impurities that we see expressed so violently and so intensely in the world today. When Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras, if you still the thought waves of your mind, the mind becomes still and you settle into yourself. Then the seer, that individual that has been identified with the mind, settles into his own true nature. And at other times, he's identified with the mind. He's identified with the body. So the way to overcome this is to induce a state of stillness of the mind. He said, "Abhyasa vairagya bhyam tan nirodha." Abhyasa vairagya tan nirodha. By practice and renunciation. That's how the thought waves are stilled. That's how these phenomena are overcome. So it's a matter of practice, mantra, the focusing the mind, being present. And then when these phenomena arise, we let them go. We watch them. We look deeply. We're not afraid to look and see. I have anger. I have anxiety. I have impurities. And these are what everyone has. This is the condition of human life. These are caused by these kleshas, avidya, smita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So these are the impurities that have to be overcome, have to be dealt with very consciously. This is the way that the yogi lives his life. And it's a matter of changing our focus from it's somebody else's fault. The world should be this way. I'm a victim. Whatever that tape that goes in our mind, but the main thing is to change the focus to be observing all the time and using the tools that we're given, no matter what path we're on, to center, and that's the abhyasa, and then let this go, observe, but let go of all these 6 enemies, as they call them, and be able to settle into ourself. So we know that these things come up without us being aware, and when we're particularly unaware, they can arise. There's a story Swami Shivananda used to tell. There was a king, and he had sadhus in his kingdom that had an ashram. And he said, people came and said, those sadhus, they live there, they don't do anything. They just eat, and you give them money, and you take care of them, and they're just useless people. You should just get rid of them. They don't do anything for society. They just sit and they just contemplate, they just meditate, they practice detachment, they're watching their minds. We don't know what they're doing. And the king said, that's very interesting. And says, let's see. So he got together with his prime minister, and he said, let's just do a little experiment here. And so they talked about it, and they came up with a plan. And that morning, about 3 in the morning, they took buckets of cold water from the Ganges, and then went first to the home of the minister who had complained. And they poured the bucket of water on him, and he woke up in a total fit of anger. And he all kinds of swear words and obscenities came out, and he said, "Oh, good morning, Your Majesty. I didn't know you were there." So they went on to the ashram where the sadhus were, and they took the same buckets of cold water and they threw them on this whole bunch of sadhus, and all the sadhus walked and said, "Oh, Hari Ram, Hari Ram," and they said, "Oh, this is great." They were in that state. So when you're tested, when something happens, if you can chant Hari Ram or Om Namah Shivaya or whatever that may still be in a joyful state, then you know you're doing well. You know that things are going well, that the mind is being purified. And if not, you know you have lots of more work to do. I have something else here. Baba said, when this true awareness arises within us, our outlook changes, and we see everything around us through new eyes. So this is the idea, right? We want to see things through new eyes, to have a different experience, to be not identified with the body, to not be controlled by desire and aversion, to not have fear of death, to have a whole new outlook. He says relationships that may have seemed painful or dry become joyful and filled with affection. We feel an ever-expanding love for our family and friends, and gradually we start to see everyone around us as different forms of our own self. Ordinary activities and tasks which might have seemed dull or insipid begin to take on a new savor. Kundalini is a great source of motivation and inspiration. She makes us a better writer, a better speaker, a doctor, a better doctor, a statesman, a better statesman, and so on. So there's this change, this outcome from that. So again, Baba was first saying we should contemplate. There is a problem. There is a solution. The cause of the problem is ignorance of the self. The solution is to meditate on the self. And the result is that we're changed, that there's a transformation within us. And when that person becomes transformed in that way, they can have an effect on the world that's completely revolutionary. So we ourselves can have a positive effect no matter where we go, because we are aware of our true nature. And we can be objective, we can be free, we can be open, we can be compassionate, and we can express that wherever we go. back in 1977, I think it was, in the Oakland ashram. I was a manager of the ashram, and there was a long darshan line. And as a manager, I was sitting not very far back from Baba, pretty close to Baba's chair. And I was watching the darshan line. And the people come up and they give something. Baba hits them with the peacock feathers. They ask for a name. You know, many of you were there and you've seen videos. So it's this long line of people coming up. And everyone is in a very, very nice state. Baba's just given a talk. Everyone has just meditated and chanted. And that one person came up, and Baba looked down, and he hits him with the peacock feathers, and the man shook out his hand reached his hand out to shake Baba's hand. He shook his hand, and Baba started to withdraw his hand, and the man held on. And he started to pull Baba. And Baba pulled back. And Baba turned around, and he took his peacock feathers, turned around to the handle was in front, and he went like this, and he said something to the boy, and everybody and I jumped up. Everybody stood up, and suddenly it just kind of dissipated, and it was like this moment of danger. And for that moment, I was like, whoa, this is not right. And I became, I was the guy, right? And the person, went back through the crowd, and I pointed to somebody, the assistant manager. I said, throw him out, in this sort of grand gesture. And a couple of minutes later, Baba said, where is that boy? And I went, oh no. So I got up quickly. I ran to the lobby. Unfortunately, the guy, he hadn't left yet. And his name was Alan Boyd, and we had quite a history after that. Because after Baba left, I kind of became friends with him. And he was somebody that they had emptied the institutions in which the mentally ill had been kept for a long time. But at that time in California, the people were put on the streets. So he was in a sort of altered, not a good state of mind. So he had this interaction with Baba. And as he was leaving, I grabbed him. I said, Baba wants to see you. Come back in. And I felt this kind of like, wow, that was too impulsive on my part. I reacted to the anger. I got involved in this. And I was so glad that I was able to bring him back in. And he came in, went in the darshan line again. And he went up to Baba, and Baba said, patted him. He took him up on his lap, and Baba patted him and said, you're a good boy. You should know the customs of a place. You should behave yourself in the place. And Baba said, sit over there. And he sat and he meditated. And at that time, I was like full of all kinds of emotions. But the main thing I could see is that Baba said, he said, did you think I couldn't handle that? You think I couldn't handle him? I could handle that. And there was no problem. There was no fear in him. There was no anxiety. There was just a feeling of love. He dealt with it very firmly, but it was like everyone softened and opened in his presence. So I learned a lot from that moment. And one of the biggest things was that someone that's absorbed in that state of consciousness sees everyone as their own self, and that beings that are expressing animosity become calm in their presence. And that's the transformation effect that can happen when we meditate, when we chant, and when we identify with that. Tukaram says, Chitta shuddhitari shatu mita hoti vagrahina kati sarva sarpataya visha amha agarta tehita akartava nita hoya tyasi. Tukaram says, when the mind has become purified, the snake does not bite and the tiger does not kill a person. Everything becomes calm in the presence of that person. Poison becomes nectar. Inauspicious things become auspicious. Something that shouldn't be done turns out to be in their favor. Pain becomes joy. Everything works out in the favor of the person that's absorbed in the self. One should understand, Tukaram says, that all this comes about through the grace of Narayana, that a person would have this kind of experience. So in this time of crisis, and we can use the world, and that then we die. Yet, if we were to look inside ourselves, we would realize that we contain the divinity that has created this whole world. Sadhguru Nath Maharaj Ki Jai.
धन्य धन्य प्रदक्षिणा सद्गुरुरायाची झाली वर सुरवर विमान उतरा याची धन्य जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो हे योगेश्वर हे ज्ञानेश्वर हे योगेश्वर हे ज्ञानेश्वर हे सर्वेश्वर हे परमेश्वर हे सर्वेश्वर हे परमेश्वर निचा कृपा बरसावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो हम बालक तेरे द्वार पे आए हम बालक तेरे द्वार पे आए मांगल दरस दिखावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सजुकाया करे तेरी आरती से सजुकाया करे तेरी आरती प्रेम सुरा बरसावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो अंतर में युग युग से सोई अंतर में युग युग से सोई चित्त शक्ति को जगावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो जगे हृदय में साची ज्योत जगे हृदय में सो अमनार जगावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो जीवन मुक्त नंद अविनाशी जीवन ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो मेरा अंतर मेरा मिटावो सद्गुरु ज्योत से ज्योत जगावो त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणां त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं माम देव देवा दुरकरो दुःख दरसबा दया करो भगवान मना मंदिर में उज्ज्वल हो lagya जिस घर मेरो आरती चरण कमल चितला ठान हरि वासा करे च्युतानंत जगाए जहान भक्त कीर्तन करे बाहे प्रेम दरिया ठान हरि श्रवण करे सत्य लोक से आए सब कुछ दिया आपने बेमत करुण्या नमस्कार की बेमत करुण जोड़न में दोनों हाथ नमस्कार की बेमत करुण जोड़न में दोनों हाथ ओम पूर्णमदा पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति 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 सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय
So this concludes our Sunday morning satsang, and thank you all for joining us. And what do we have coming up? Tomorrow morning we have our Spanish Adonde Vas, Baba's Where Are You Going? Online study group with Nicheshwari, so that's tomorrow morning, 9:30 to 11, so everybody please do join us. And then on Thursday, which is June 4th, we have Larry's Kashmir Shaivism workshop, or Journey to the Self, Journey to the Self, Journey on the Self. So all about Baba's teachings and all of that, so please join us for that. That's on Thursday morning. And then on Saturday, we have online study groups with Dana, which continue with the Pratyabhigna Hridayam. So make sure that you join us for that. So again, Mondays and Saturdays weekly, and then Thursdays, the first Thursday of the month for the workshop. And that starts at 10 o'clock and goes till 12 o'clock noon. So please join us for all of that. Also, I would like to inform everybody that as of tomorrow morning, we will have our registration open online, which will be for Gurudev's Intensive, which will be in honor of Guru Purnima. So the Guru Purnima Intensive virtually will come to all of you. Registration is required for that, and that'll be available tomorrow on our website. So please visit us there. And also, I would like to bring everybody's attention to Baba's 50th anniversary of bringing the teachings to the West, and his visit to the U.S., New York, September 3rd, 1970. Our retreat that was scheduled for July will be moved towards the Labor Day weekend. So all of you will be able to join us virtually. We have things that are getting into place so that we will be able to bring that to you live. And also, hopefully by then, let's see where things are at, and maybe some of you will physically be able to have your presence here at the ashram as well. That remains to be seen, but at least we are gearing up for the to be able to offer to you via live stream and Zoom and all the rest of it. Our technology department is putting all of their, lining up, as we would say, all of our ducks in a row so that that's available to you. And as Dana was sharing Baba's words, from Where Are You Going, about getting back onto the main track, getting back onto the main road, it reminded me of something that Gurudev used to say, and it was always, may our pilgrimage to the truth be a joyous one, may it be a happy one. So it's up to us. And so to do that, we always talk about cheerfulness of mind, so manaha prasadaha. So cheerfulness of mind, so what we fill our minds with, the content that we place there, the content that we hold there, that is entirely up to us. So what thoughts we want to keep there, what visuals we want to store there, and that we can truly, based on everything that we see externally on our devices, we can discipline ourselves to how much of that we take in and how much of it we leave here. So I want to encourage everybody to take those steps that allow us to maintain a healthy mind, an uplifting mind, so that wherever we go, as Baba always said, wherever you go, you go. So that means that whatever it is that we carry, that is what we share and spread to others. So continue to make our days purposeful, joyful, do as many walks as we can, observing nature, seeing all of that, eating good, healthy food so that our bodies remain filled with great prana, great life force, and and we boost our immune systems as they're sharing, and to continue to allow that which will unfold, no matter what we do or what we try to do, but at least we can maintain our own selves and our own minds. So thank you all for joining us for Sunday morning satsang, and for those of us in residence, to a wonderful harvest from our very own Shanti Mandir garden. We have an abundance of spinach, so today's lunch prasad is palak paneer. So enjoy that. Lots of iron, lots of great prana and life force in the fresh harvest from the garden. And enjoy this beautiful day. Sadgurunad Maharaj Ki Jai. Just one more announcement. I just want to make sure that I clarified to everyone that going forward, our Shanti Mandir, our platform for the Shanti Mandir Walden live stream will be YouTube. Okay, so YouTube, that's where you'll find us. Thank you.